So while I wait for my food, I did this illustration to explain to a patient why phosphorus levels that are really high is bad. So we're going to start here with our kidneys. So our kidneys regulate phosphorus, regulate calcium, and activates vitamin D. Now by regulating, I mean when phosphorus is too high, which are these squares right here, when there's too many squares, too much phosphorus, you urinate it out. When you have too much calcium, you urinate it out. When you don't have enough calcium, vitamin D becomes activated and allows your body to absorb the calcium that you eat. Now, you can eat a lot of food or drinks with calcium, but it's not going to do anything for you unless vitamin D is activated. So that's what the kidneys do for us and other things. But with kidney failure, there's no regulation of phosphorus, no regulation of calcium, and no vitamin D being activated. So what does that mean? I now have kidney failure and I'm eating food right now. I'm eating chocolate, cheese, processed foods, and my phosphorus levels are getting really, really high in my blood because the kidneys are no longer regulating the phosphorus. So you see these squares, there's way more squares now. But my calcium is low. Why is my calcium low? Well, there's two reasons. One, you see that single calcium right there. One reason why the calcium is low is because vitamin D is no longer being activated. Remember, you could soak up the sun, you can drink all the milk you want to get vitamin D in your body, but the kidneys need to activate it. And once it's activated, calcium is allowed to be absorbed in your body. So because there's no vitamin D activation, there's a little bit of calcium. Also, phosphorus loves calcium. They have a love-hate relationship. When there's a lot of phosphorus, it's going to just start absorbing calcium. It binds to it, which isn't good because your body needs that calcium. And this single piece of calcium is the only thing that's in your bloodstream right now that's allowing muscle movement, allowing nerve signals to be transmitted. So that's bad. We need more calcium in our bloodstream. So what are we going to do? Bam. Insert your parathyroid gland. This gland in your neck monitors calcium, monitors phosphorus, and it can release a hormone to increase calcium when it notices that the calcium levels in your bloodstream are low. So, look at this example right here. You see all those dots? That's a lot of calcium. So the parathyroid gland is okay with that. But in this example, there's only one free dot right there. So the parathyroid gland doesn't like low calcium. When it detects low calcium, it releases a hormone called the parathyroid hormone, or PTH for short. This hormone takes calcium from your bones and puts it in your bloodstream. So PTH takes calcium from your bones and it allows it to circulate in the blood. So this is the example. PTH is increased, so calcium is being taken from bone and being moved into the bloodstream. But what do we see right there? Phosphorus. Remember, your phosphorus level is high, so you have a lot of phosphorus in your bloodstream. So even though the parathyroid hormone is drawing calcium out of the bone, your phosphorus is just going to gobble that up. So like, that's it. So thanks, parathyroid hormone. You're just giving me more food. Now look what happens to the bone. Bones need calcium. So the bones are being affected by the calcium that's being stripped off of the bone. But the parathyroid gland still senses low calcium. So it says, I'm going to make even more parathyroid hormone. So more calcium is being removed from the bone. But what is it running into? That high phosphorus level that's in your blood. So even though more calcium is being released, your phosphorus level is high. If your phosphorus is high, it's going to just absorb and bind to all of that calcium. So your bone's really affected right now. That's a skinny little bone. It used to be really thick. Now it's really thin. And the parathyroid hormone still detects low calcium. So the parathyroid hormone levels are increased further and more calcium is being drawn from your bones, which is being absorbed and binded to by all that phosphorus that's in your blood. So, moral of the story, if you eat a lot of phosphorus and the phosphorus levels in your bloodstreams continue to get higher and higher and higher, you will be low in calcium, but you will be high in PTH because your parathyroid is releasing this PTH hormone to get calcium out of your bones so you can actually have the calcium you need. But your phosphorus is high. So all that calcium is just going to the phosphorus and binding to the phosphorus. So it's an endless circle with bad results. One result is this: high phosphorus levels in general is going to cause very, very itchy skin all over your body. And eventually you're going to have these kind of wounds that appears. Like if you have darker skin, it'll be black. If you have lighter skin, it'll be reddish, and it's going to be very itchy. High PTH levels will cause brittle bones, and we just talked about why. Quick recap: PTH takes calcium from your bones. Your calcium is needed in the bones to keep it strong, and eventually your bones become weak and brittle if it keeps releasing PTH because of low calcium levels. So you'll have brittle bones, and you can also develop this disease called calciphylaxis, and it is really bad and really deadly. So this is an example. That PTH hormone released so much calcium, but the phosphorus just kept binding to it. But what happens to that phosphorus calcium combo? Where does it go? It just accumulates in your bloodstream and starts blocking your bloodstream. So these areas of your body starts to die. You'll start to see wounds, then you'll get deep ulcers, and eventually, I have never seen one patient live 1 year with being diagnosed with calciphylaxis. So that's the nitty-gritty of it. How do we prevent all this from happening? Well, you have kidney failure, so we're going to just start there. When you eat foods, make sure they're not high in phosphorus. If you do eat foods that are high in phosphorus or has phosphorus in it, make sure you take your phosphate binders, the medications that the dietitian, the nurse, and the doctor told you about. Take the medicine right before you eat your food. The second before you eat, take that binder. It's going to go in your stomach, and then all the food that you eat, it'll absorb that phosphorus and you'll poop it out. So you will never have this high phosphorus level in your body. So the phosphorus will never bind to your calcium. So your calcium will never be low because your calcium is not low. PTH is not released, and it's not taking calcium from your bones. Now, there's another medicine that you may have if you already have high PTH, because this cycle has already begun for you. You may have a medicine called calcitriol. Now, calcitriol mimics activating vitamin D. So it allows vitamin D to become activated so you can absorb more calcium from the foods that you eat. And if your calcium is high because you have activated vitamin D again, then PTH will never be released because your calcium will be high, and PTH is released when your calcium is low. So you will not have these brittle bones. Now, with that being said, if you have very, very high PTH, like I said before, and very high phosphorus, this can eventually happen, calciphylaxis. But also, if you take phosphate binders that are calcium-based binders, and your calcium is already high, but the binders aren't doing their job, maybe you're taking them wrong, so you're not really getting low in phosphorus, your phosphorus is still high, you're taking this binder that has calcium in it, this can happen to you. So there's other ways that you can get calciphylaxis, but at the end of the day, we want to monitor our phosphorus levels to make sure it's not high, because if it's not high, then this won't happen. We want to monitor our PTH, make sure our PTH is not high, because if this isn't high, this won't happen, and possibly this won't happen. And you want to monitor your calcium levels. Make sure your calcium levels are not too low, because if they're too low, this PTH chain will happen and you'll get brittle bones. And you also want to make sure your calcium is not too high, because if your calcium is too high, the phosphorus will bind to it and you can get this deadly disease called calciphylaxis. Hope all this made sense. If it did, let me know. If it didn't, let me know. Take care. Ciao.